How do we know that God exists? The existence of God cannot be proven, nor can it be disproven. However, there are some very strong indicators that God exists, and some very compelling arguments for his existence. In a letter to early Jewish Christians, the Apostle Paul said, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." In other words, the Bible teaches that we must accept by faith that God exists. If God wanted to, he could appear in the sky so everyone could see him. But if he did that, there would be no need for faith. God chose other means to reveal himself and show himself to us. Jesus said, "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." There is a lot of evidence for the existence of God. The Bible states, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour out speech, and night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. Their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the ends of the world." Looking at the stars, understanding the vastness of the universe, observing the wonders of the human body, seeing the beauty of a sunset, all of these things point to a creator God. A Jewish king named Solomon said it this way, "He has also set eternity in the hearts of men." Within each human being, there is a sense that there is something beyond this life and this world. Man tries to deny God's existence.
Well, there is no God or supernatural force. All that you see happened by random processes. We are merely descended from animals.
Your book was key to helping me understand that God is merely a delusion that we project from our subconscious, hoping that something out there is better for us.
As we reach a higher plane of consciousness and thought, we'll eventually evolve from this thinking.
So a very reasonable and fair question to ask is, are there other arguments about God's existence beyond the Bible? So what are some of the logical arguments for God?
Ignorance is bliss.
Since the vast majority of people and cultures throughout history have held a belief in some type of God, we need to examine this. There are 4 logical arguments that should be considered by every man, woman, and child. Argument number 1, the definition of God. The definition of God is that he is a being who is greater than any other being we could conceive. This is also called the ontological argument for God. The word ontology relates to the essence or nature of a being. This means holding to the existence of the very concept of God means the existence of God. Logically, to exist is greater than to not exist. Therefore, the greatest conceivable being must exist. Argument number 2, the design in the universe. Just take simple water and its viscosity, or resistance of fluid to flowing freely, as an example. The viscosity of water is perfect for the use of all creatures. If its viscosity was a little higher than it is, plants could not have used it for transporting the nutrients so important for survival within their capillary tubes. If the viscosity were lower, then the flow of rivers would have been a great deal different. Mountain formations, valleys, and plateaus would have changed, and rocks could not have broken down to form soil. Water also facilitates the circulation of the red blood cells that defend our bodies against microbes and dangerous substances. If water's viscosity were greater, the movement of these cells within the vessels would have been totally impossible. It is very evident that water is a fluid that has been specially created for living beings. The existing distances between the stars are just right to permit the existence of solar systems like ours. If the distance was much less, planetary orbits would become unstable. If it was much more, then the debris thrown out by a supernova would make solar systems like ours unlikely. If we were closer or farther from the sun, we would either freeze or burn up. Atmospheric pressure is just the right amount. If it decreased, then water evaporation would increase and greatly increase the planet's temperature. If it increased greatly, then water vapor would be reduced, with most of the world becoming a desert. The skin, by itself, is an organ that refutes the theory of evolution. It is impossible for any living being to survive which has all its organs fully formed, but its skin not yet evolved or partly formed. This is why all the bodily parts of human beings, as well as animals, have been formed flawlessly at the same time. That is, they were created. The skin has mechanisms to cool down the body in hot weather and warm up the body in cold weather. The odds of a single protein molecule forming by chance is 1 in 10 to the 243rd power. Yet a single cell is comprised of millions of protein molecules. Intelligent systems could not arise without an intelligent designer. This is called the teleological argument for God. Argument number 3, the dependence of cause and effect. This is called the cosmological argument for God, that every effect must have a cause. Ultimately, there must be something uncaused to cause things to come into existence. That uncaused cause is God. Some people say,
the cosmos is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be.
but the evidence indicates that the universe did have a beginning. Most scientists studying the origins of the universe believe that it came into being in a sudden and cataclysmic way, the Big Bang Theory. Those who believe the universe is eternal believe the universe is constantly producing hydrogen atoms from nothing. But the second law of thermodynamics says the universe is running out of usable energy. If it is running down, then it could not be eternal. Also, if it is winding down, it means it was also wound up. Argument number 4. The desire of every culture is for some type of moral law. The moral argument correctly points out that every culture has some type of law, and every person has some sense of right and wrong. Hey, he took my hubcaps! Such things as murder, lying, and stealing are condemned in most cultures. This sense of right and wrong comes from a God who is holy and his standard of perfection. The first 3 chapters in the book of Romans in the Bible gives 3 powerful lights or beacons that God exists: the light of creation, the light of conscience, and the light of Christ. Jesus said, "If you have seen me, you have seen the Father." Unfortunately, people reject very reasonable and logical arguments for God. Unfortunately, some people reject the clear and undeniable evidence for God. Unfortunately, some people choose to believe a lie. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. In other words, no man, woman, boy, or girl, any human who has ever lived, has an excuse for not believing in God. People give reasons such as, "It's not scientific," or "There's no proof for God." But the main reason people do that is that once people admit there is a God, they must also realize that they are responsible to him, accountable to him, and in need of forgiveness. The fact that so many aggressively attempt to disprove him is actually an argument for his existence. If God doesn't exist, why seek to disprove him? Through many ways, God has given powerful proofs of his existence. We have to choose how we are going to respond to that information. Faith in God is not a blind leap in the dark. It is a safe step into a well-lit room where the vast majority of people in the world are already standing.